Ever since I experienced burnout last year, I've had a really hard time coming up with a routine for the karate shrimp that wouldn't lead to burnout again. I don't know if I've completely recovered from the burnout. I do feel a lot better, but I do have some days where it's a struggle to feel motivated. It's a struggle to get back on track with my filming. Other days I'm really excited about it and I love all of it. I do think that having an existential crisis every now and then is a normal part of being a creator. I hear this often on YouTube in particular. And I think just being an artistic person, a creative person, there is going to be that cycle. But I really don't want to burn out again, not completely. I do suspect I might need to take a break again sometime soon. But the burnout that I experienced, I've talked about it in another video. It wasn't about working too hard necessarily. It was more so that I had so much accumulated fatigue and stress and grief that I hadn't really been able to sit with and face and work through. And the burnout was kind of my body's way of saying, hey, pay attention. You got to just stop now and deal. And I'm really grateful for it, actually. It was tough at the time. I was in this really good routine with filming. I was producing a lot of videos. I felt really good about it. I had a pretty strict schedule for myself, but it was manageable. And I was creating a lot of videos that I was proud of. And then one day I just couldn't do it. I sat down to film a video and I couldn't do it. I just froze. And that's when I realized I need to take a break for however long. I took a partial break. I was still making, I think I was making YouTube shorts and reels, but I wasn't filming any new videos. I probably should have taken an actual period of time off, 1 month, 2 months, whatever it takes. That might be something I need to do sometime soon, as I said. But what it really was is just too much stuff happening in such a short period of time leading up until that point. And I think a lot of it was at the time, I wanted to take time to grieve and work through all that stuff, but because of circumstances, I couldn't. And that's something my kids and I have talked about, in particular with losing my mom. I think that was the biggest thing, and that's the thing that still is the hardest for me now. All the rest of it has kind of faded, but it's losing my mom and how we lost her that still hits the hardest. We didn't really have time to grieve until much, much later because of other things that were happening at the time. And again, my kids and I have said we feel kind of robbed of that we just wanted to sit and grieve and think about my mom. My kids were both really close to their Oma, and just remember her and go through photos. And we didn't get that opportunity because of all of the other bullshit that was happening. So quick recap for people who don't know my story. I started karate and it was March 2017. I'd never taken martial arts. Well, okay, I did take Tai Chi for 3 months in my early 20s. I don't count that, not because I don't see it as a martial art, but I wasn't really serious about it. It was just something I was trying. I was interested in martial arts, but I wanted to take something more aggressive, like kickboxing or something. A friend convinced me to try Tai Chi. I did enjoy it. And then I went on a big road trip and didn't have any money when I got back, so I couldn't afford to get back into Tai Chi. But I consider the start of my journey at age 41, March 2017, because that's when I really took it seriously. So before that, it was 2016 in April, my mom got diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is a cancer of the blood that occurs in the bone marrow. And this was my biggest fear, was losing my mom. And of course, everyone dies, I knew it was coming at some point, but, it was really hard to face the reality of losing someone to cancer. And because when I was 10, my dad died horribly. He was walking our dog and then got hit by a car. And after that, I was just terrified of losing my mom. And my mom and I had this really close relationship. She struggled a lot after losing my dad and really leaned heavily on me to kind of take care of her emotional needs. And yeah, there was, codependent relationship. I don't fault her that though. Later she told me that she was actually suicidal at the time and having a really hard time and wished she had taken us to therapy. But again, like she was an amazing woman and I don't fault her any of that and blame her for any of that. And I was grateful to have that time with her and help her as much as I could. But I did have this kind of caretaker role with her, and my sister had moved out. So it's just me and my mom, and I knew I had to toughen up and take care of her. And I had people around me saying the same thing. Sabrina, you have to be strong for your mom. Your mom's having a hard time. You need to be there for her. And so that's what I did. So I pushed my feelings down, didn't think about it, didn't talk about it. Well, I did think about it. When I'd be alone at night in bed, I'd think about my dad. And what really got me through all of that, it felt so surreal to me losing him, because he would get up early, walk the dog, and then come home in time to get me up for school. And that one day, it was grade 5, November, he didn't come home. And I slept in, and my mom came into my room like, where's your dad? Why aren't you up? You know, we had to wait until the police came. And it was a kid who was speeding, driving his dad's car, and he had a driving record, killed my dad and the dog, our dog Charlie. And, judge felt sorry for him. He got off, and it was a whole horrible thing. But what got me through that, I needed it to be real, and it didn't feel real, is I started to visualize, to imagine what it was like, what my dad went through, to visualize the accident. Horrible as it sounds, that's what got me through it. I was filled with rage. I wanted that guy dead. I was so angry. 10 years old, I felt betrayed by the universe. At the time, I was raised Catholic. I was still religious. I still believed in God at the time. Don't anymore. No judgment for me. I respect anyone's beliefs, but as long as you're not an asshole, I respect your beliefs. But for me, at the time, I was still religious, but I felt betrayed by God. Like, how could you take my dad like that? And so angry at this guy for killing my dad, and not seeming all that remorseful over it. And so what got me through it was imagining this horrible scenario. And over time, I realized I had forgiven this guy, because if I could imagine this horrible thing that happened, he had to live with it. And he had to live with the fact that he had done this to a human being. He had done this to a father. He had done this to a husband. So I eventually healed from that. And then my mom getting cancer, it kind of threw me right back into that anger and that grief and that caretaking role with her, where I was kind of like her counselor. And I've always had that kind of role with my mom. Well, ever since my dad died, for sure. And so I was right back in that and just struggling so much. Like, I have to be strong for my mom, and I can't show weakness. I can't cry in front of anybody. And that's something that had happened after my dad died. I couldn't show any feelings. I couldn't say I love you to anyone. I couldn't do any of that. I just had to put so many walls around myself and protect myself from losing people. And then I eventually healed from that years and years later. And then my mom got diagnosed, and I was right back there. And karate was so pivotal in helping me through that, and helping me get out of that, and helping me face those feelings and work through those feelings. And I used all of that anger and grief and sadness as fuel for my training. And it wasn't that I would go to the dojo angry or sad or anything. Like, I'd laugh so much. I started laughing again. I found my sense of humor again. I found my childlike spirit again. And I'm quite a goofy person and silly person, and I always have been ever since I was young. And that karate brought that out of me again. And I'd still have really tough days and, feel angry and sad and cry a lot. But I just felt this release through it. And I felt like, I can handle this. I can be strong for her, and I can also be vulnerable, and it's okay. So karate was so important to me for helping me through that. And then I started 2 other martial arts at the dojo, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and Kobudo. I joined a tournament team later on. I got hired as a senpai working at the dojo. It was awesome. I loved it. And then 2021, everything went to shit. Well, it was already difficult before that. I had separated end of 2019, 2020. Pandemic started, COVID, dojo shut down, schools closed. I started building my website and creating the Karate Shrimp. And originally I wanted to be a blogger and make videos to drive traffic to my blog. And I quickly realized when launching in November 2020 that I really just wanted to be a YouTuber and a video creator. And I really love writing, but I love writing for video. And so that's been a really exciting process for me, starting from scratch, starting from zero, knowing nothing about video production, nothing about blogging, nothing about how to build a website, a WordPress site, nothing about, using social media for a business, none of that. I knew nothing. I've done so much research and I've learned so much along the way by making so many mistakes. And it's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful process. So 2020 was exciting. Yes, I was going through the separation and divorce process, but I had this hope and I knew who I was. I had found karate. I had found this path, through with martial arts and wanting to be a blogger and all of that and doing things that scared me and feeling excited about that. And I had all this hope. And then 2021 was devastating and difficult. And at the beginning of the year, my ex kicked the kids out. They've been with me full time. Shortly after that, my mom's cancer got worse and worse and worse. She started collapsing in parking lots, needing one blood transfusion after another. Nothing helped. Then in that summer, I started dealing with one of the students at the dojo started harassing me and stalking me. And then my mom ended up in emergency with a stomach rupture. Turns out she had stage 4 stomach cancer, completely unrelated to the probably stage 3 multiple myeloma. And multiple myeloma only goes to stage 3. So she had 2 terminal cancers now. She was given maybe a month or 2. She lasted 5 weeks, 2 weeks in hospital, 3 weeks in hospice. The most horrifying, awful, heart-wrenching time of my life. During that time, dealing with lawyers, divorce lawyers, dealing with all of this he said, she said around my ex kicking the kids out, all sorts of bullshit, dealing with a stalker at the dojo. There was a couple of weeks there where my mom was in hospice dying. I knew she was dying. I knew she was dying, from emergency room on. And I had to run the dojo while my sensei at the time was away, driving back and forth however many hours a day with my kids to visit my mom in hospice, spend time with her, my kids watching her die, but wanting to be there with their Oma. They draw pictures for her, hold her hand, tell her stories. Then I have to drive all the way back to the city I live in, open up the dojo, go there with my kids, run the dojo, and then the next day do the same thing again. Meanwhile, there's a student at the dojo harassing me, lurking on my oldest on their social media accounts, a minor, lurking on a minor's social media accounts, texting a teenager at the dojo, like all sorts of bullshit, creeping me out. And then September 4th, my mom died. And we just wanted to grieve, right? This is what I was talking about earlier. We just wanted to grieve, take time, think about her, plan the funeral, be with family and cherish those memories, right? And just process, because it had been so exhausting. The whole process of, just grieving for someone when they're still alive from the day she got diagnosed to the very end. And then it just, progressing so quickly near the end, and all of her friends and family, all of her loved ones were all shocked at how quickly it went, how horribly it went. There was a lot of different things, possible medical malpractice, treated poorly in hospice. They'd take meals away while she was sleeping, so she wasn't even eating, all sorts of bullshit that we had to deal with. And I had so much anger, right? So much anger, that anger as part of grief, that was coming up more and more, and angry at the stalker and anger at all this bullshit. And so we just wanted to grieve. And then this funeral home director, we had arrangements with a funeral home for my mom, and they would, arrange for transport to have her picked up from hospice and brought to the funeral home. And we were already planning the funeral. And then this other funeral home director took her body without authorization, held on to her for a week, demanding money for the transport. And apparently, we heard from the funeral home we were using, they had done this before. This was a thing they did to try and get money. I had an argument with the director, the horrible director, over the phone. He was awful to me. He was telling me all this horrible stuff that my mom would have been ashamed of me and all this stuff. Here's someone who makes his money, makes his living off of people who are grieving and is taking advantage of those people, taking advantage. So of course, I'm sure he gets many people that, he gets their loved one without authorization, swoops them up, takes them to his funeral home. By this point, they're like, oh, okay, I guess, you know, I guess we'll just go with this funeral home. They're already there. And then he gets the business, right? Total bullshit. We had to get consumer protection involved. A friend of mine who's a lawyer helped out, and we finally got her back. But I was so angry during that week. And then we still had to, plan the funeral, finish planning the funeral. I did the eulogy. It was awful. Like, we just wanted to cry, but we couldn't because we had all this bullshit to deal with. And the stalker situation was getting worse and worse during that time as well. My sensei at the time, ever since COVID, he got weird. I don't know. I know a lot of people have struggled. A lot of business owners have struggled mentally with their mental health because of COVID. I totally see that and get that. But I took the brunt of a lot of it at the dojo because I was the other adult working there that was continuing to work there. There were other people I love, people I care about, who used to go to that dojo who got fucked over big time too. So toxic leadership big time. I'm really glad to be out of that. I've had a number of people ask me, would you ever go back? Do you regret leaving? All that stuff. I feel for a while, I think I had this subconscious hope that he would reach out and apologize for how he had treated me and maybe I could train there again. Now I know that is totally done. That is totally gone. He blocked me after, blocked my kid after, just a whole bunch of bullshit. But anyway, he was treating me horribly. Treated me horribly about this stalker situation. He took the stalker side of it, saw me as the problem. The stalker was a student who everyone had been uncomfortable with when he started training at the dojo. Even the sensei had been uncomfortable with him, and he wasn't sure if he'd let him continue to train. He became, a tolerated part of the group. We started to see him as harmless, but there were a lot of little things that were off about him. We went on a big tournament trip to Vegas. He got detained at the airport. Turns out he had a criminal record. So this guy stalking me, criminal record, sensei knew about it, had him as a volunteer at the dojo helping teach kids. So he was doing all this stuff. I had to talk with my sensei. I haven't talked about this in too much detail, but I'll just give a little bit more today. But he talked to the guy. And then he comes back to me. The sensei came back to me and said, yeah, this guy's batshit crazy. We're going to keep an eye on him. One false move and he's gone. I didn't like that he was going to be staying at the dojo, but I'm not the owner, right? It's not up to me. And so I'm like, okay. And then the next day I show up back at work to teach, and the stalker guy is there, still has his volunteer role at the dojo, still helping teach children in class. Has a criminal record, stalking me. Sensei knows it. Sensei isn't comfortable with it. He let him stay and teach kids. Okay. End of that night, I'm like, what the fuck do I do? Next day, I was so stressed out. I had the shakes. I didn't know what to do with myself. I wasn't scheduled to work that day. I was just going to be going in to train with or without my kid. Well, my oldest was still training there. My youngest had already quit the year before. My oldest was volunteering at the dojo for, I think, 3 years. My oldest volunteered at the dojo. All of those volunteer hours were working towards high school credit. After all this stuff happened, as I said earlier, the sensei blocked my kid as well as me on social media, so my kid never got the credit for high school for all the 3 years of like 3 days a week of volunteer work at the dojo, which was bullshit. But hey, that's what happens when you deal with someone like that. So I didn't know what to do. I was stressed out the next day thinking, I can't have this guy around my kids. He's still volunteering at the dojo. He's still going to be there. This guy was the only other person at the dojo who trained as much as I did, which was every single day it was open. So any days I wasn't scheduled to work, I was there training. The days I was scheduled to work, I still trained, right? It was just, I was there all the time. And he and I were both, the stalker and I, training in all three martial arts, both on the tournament team, both had senpai roles, although I had a paid role, he had a volunteer role. And he was going to be there all the frickin' time, staring at me, being creepy with me, saying all this weird stuff about me being engaged and married and impregnated by this other person at the dojo who I wasn't with. This guy was married. It's just a whole bunch of weird delusional shit was coming out of this stalker's mouth. And he was all over all of my social media accounts, commenting everywhere, saying things everywhere, saying he had feelings for me, all this stuff. He would call there was like one black belt test and meeting, and all the senseis in the organization were there, and he was calling the senseis up and texting them and saying all this stuff about me and my, like how he wanted to be with me, but he was happy that I was engaged to this other married man at the dojo and congratulating. So all this weird shit, this delusional shit. Anyway, I didn't feel comfortable, didn't know what to do, texted the sensei and said, hey, I don't know how to navigate this. I don't know what to do. I don't feel comfortable around him. I don't feel comfortable with him being around my kids. I don't know what to do. So the sensei, he said, okay, I'll deal with it. And then later he texted me and said, okay, he's gone. I kicked him out. I'm like, oh, I was actually surprised because of how he was kind of like hesitant to really deal with it before that. And so I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. And he's like, well, it had to be done. I'm like, okay. So the next day then, after that, I showed up at the dojo. Stalker's gone. The sensei was incredibly aloof and hostile with me the whole night, being really weird with me. I didn't know what the fuck was up. At the end of the night, I brought it up. I'm like, so, hey, how did it go? He's like, oh, that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. The stalker guy was in his 40s, not quite right, lived with his parents. His dad was there. He's like, oh, it was the hardest thing I ever had to do. He was crying. His dad was there. Oh, it was horrible. I'm like, well, you said it had to be done, right? They said, yeah, but it was so awful. And so he was so rude to me about it. It's like, and I was shocked. Like, this guy was harassing me. And he was also texting a 14-year-old at the dojo who she was on the tournament team. And I said, oh, so have you talked to this girl yet? About, like, give her a heads up that, this guy's not okay. He's not safe, to stop texting with him. And the sensei said, oh, I have no evidence that he's a child molester or whatever. I'm like, well, just give her a heads up for safety. And he was so mad at me. He ripped my head off over it. So I walked out. And then later he texted me that night and said, okay, I talked to her about it. Now let's just drop it. So he was so angry and hostile towards me. Like it was my fault that one of the students was unhinged and doing inappropriate things. It was my fault. And over the next month, he treated me more and more hostilely. He blocked me from our one tournament team Facebook group for asking about the schedule because he kept changing the schedule. Blocked me from the group. He kept fucking around, my shifts and everything. And he would have one of the underage girls open the dojo instead of me. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's illegal. So all of this stuff was happening. It was just fucking me around. And then I went in, I decided I was going to quit the job. And I talked to my oldest and said, hey, my oldest had their brown belt, would have been, eligible for black belt tests sometime in the next few months. I said, hey, what do you want to do? I'm going to go in and quit. If it goes badly, I may have to quit all of it. I'm hoping to just quit the job and salvage everything else. And my kid said, if you're leaving, I'm leaving too. I'm like, are you sure? Because I'm fine with whatever you want. Nope, if you're going, I'm going. So I'm like, okay, hopefully it doesn't go that way. I went in to quit the job. The conversation went so badly. He was so rude to me, so toxic. It turns out he saw, when I admitted to him that, hey, I was uncomfortable, didn't know how to navigate, didn't know what to do. This guy at the dojo all the time, I just didn't know what to do. He took that as an ultimatum that I was saying either he goes or I go. And that's why he was angry with me. I'm like, no, he was a liability. And he's like, well, I know that now, but you were giving me an ultimatum. So clearly that sensei was dealing with his own mental health stuff, having some weird paranoid thing going on, saw me as the problem, or is just a flat out misogynist. There were other signs that he probably was. There were another girl who used to work at the dojo. She got fucked over big time. Got told to leave because she was uncomfortable at the height of COVID, tying little kids' belts and helping them adjust their masks. And that could have easily been handled by giving me her shifts, and she could have gotten the older kids who didn't need help with all that stuff, and she could have still kept her distance and protected herself from COVID. But she got kicked out, of work because of that, and she ended up quitting everything. And there were more people after me who got fucked over too, really important people who had been at the dojo for years, been on the team, lovely, lovely people that he fucked over. And there's more. There was a lot of stuff. I heard a lot of stuff. I heard a lot of shit talking about people. I heard a lot of shit talking about other people in the organization, about other dojos. I heard a lot of nasty stuff come out of that person's mouth. So I am incredibly grateful to be out of there. Incredibly grateful. I know a number of people who are still training there. I don't begrudge them that. Everyone has to make their own choice. I think for a long time I didn't want to talk about this because I worried about burning a bridge. I had hopes again, like subconsciously that I could fix it with him, and or hopes that maybe I would train at a different dojo in the same organization. For example, if I ever moved to a different city and I could actually attend one of those dojos. Now, though, I don't know. I didn't get any support from anyone for all of that. Other people who got fucked over didn't get any support from anyone in the organization. So I don't want to train within an organization that doesn't stand up for its students. So I'm really happy to be out. I'm training on my own. I haven't found another dojo yet, but I actually stopped looking, and I'm really enjoying being a parent, spending lots of time with my kids, training on my own terms, doing what I want when I want, doing karate shrimp stuff as well as other work I do, and I'm really enjoying that balance now. So for people who have asked, again, I don't miss it anymore. There were some good times, and I'm grateful for those. I'm grateful for what I learned. I kind of think sometimes some people come into our lives and it's supposed to be temporary. It's supposed to be brief. So I had, those few good years there, 4 years that were great. And then it just got really shitty, and the shittiness didn't really make up for the great stuff. So yeah, I would never go back. But anyway, so I went in, we had this horrible conversation. I ended up quitting all of it, grabbing our weapons, left. And then he lashed out after that. I heard some shit talking that was happening behind my back, of course. He blocked me online. He blocked my teenager online who had been volunteering there, as I said. I thought that was just the most cowardly shit ever. So yeah, I'm glad to be out. The stalker thing, I still have a police file going, but whatever. It hasn't been much of a concern. If anything comes up, I deal with it. So I'm not all that concerned. But the grieving for my mom, that was the part that sucked, that we couldn't just sit and grieve for someone who is so beautiful and so important in our lives because of this stalker, because of the sensei, because of that funeral home director. I think sometimes it's funny, I wonder about this. I don't know if you've ever had this. It's like when you're going through a hard time, it's like there are people in your life who need the attention. And it's like, I have this, stuff like this has happened to me before where, okay, we lost my mom. We went through this horrible thing, and it was like, that's the time. I don't know if it's any coincidence that that's the time the stalker guy started acting the way he did. That's the time my sensei started acting the way he did. It's like people see your need, your vulnerability, and just want that attention on themselves or something. Like I've had this thought more than once that it's no coincidence, I think, that some people, narcissists in particular, they really need that attention on themselves. And especially if you're hurting. Yeah, and people who hurt you when you're hurting, or like you're a victim of something and then they treat you horribly, they attack you for it. Like that's the most cowardly shit. So that's what I'm most angry about, is that we didn't get that time to grieve, to think about this beautiful person. And it took months and months and months before we could. And then the following year, so that was 2021, really rough winter, really rough Christmas, thinking about my mom. And then 2022, kids and I got COVID. Well, they tested positive. I never did, but I was already isolating with them when I got symptoms, so I'm sure it was COVID. Took months and months for me to get my energy back. So 2022 kind of sucked for that. And then I also had divorce mediation, which was awful, and the finalization of my divorce, which, big relief, but it was also a real shit show. It was a really stressful time. And so 2022 was exhausting. And so again, like all the divorce stuff, I didn't have that time to grieve because I had all this stress about the divorce and all the back and forth and bullshit. And then 2023, burnout for me. So no fucking wonder, right? So looking back, it totally makes sense to me. It was coming. And then ever since then, I've been feeling a lot better, but, and yeah, my kids are so much better. And I think, I talk about this stuff and people say, holy crap, like you went through so much. And I think about my kids, and they went through all of that and worse. They went through all of that. They were so close to my mom. They knew everything that was happening. They didn't feel safe. with all the stalker stuff. They didn't feel safe at the dojo. They didn't feel safe for a while at home. Like, what if he came here? Or they didn't feel safe. And also worrying like they lost my mom and that, well, maybe they'll lose me too. And they had been kicked out of their dad's house. So they felt betrayed by him. It's like, well, who do they have to take care of them? So my oldest struggled with like panic attacks for a long time. And my youngest is still struggling with like school avoidance anxiety and social anxiety. And they're both so much better now. But, just having more time to rest and spending more time with loved ones and taking it easy and having some chill time, that is so important. I can see that. Like we're still kind of in recovery mode, all three of us. Like life doesn't have to be that exciting anymore. And it's funny because my oldest got in a bit of an argument with their dad the other day because my oldest is turning 19 soon and doesn't want to do anything all that exciting for their birthday, just wants a chill night with, me and their sister and their partner, and we'll probably just like order in sushi and watch movies or whatever. And their dad is all up in arms about this. Oh, wow, it's your 19th birthday. You should make it exciting. It's like, nah, no, we've gone through so much excitement, and I totally get that. We've gone through far too much stressful, awful excitement. We don't need any more of that right now, and that'll come. Parties will happen again and all of that, but if my kids want to lay low, I totally respect that and I totally honor that. So yeah, my youngest is a lot better, but will probably be full-time homeschooling in the fall, which, it'll be a challenge, but I think it'll be really, really good too. So it's everything I went through, my kids went through that and more and worse. Their feelings of safety and security and who can they count on, like all of that was just, called into question. So the kids are the most important thing, and that's been my focus. And I'm so grateful to be at home, be able to work at home, work from home, and be there with them and have this time with them. And it's really cool. So yeah, my oldest just finished first year of culinary arts, is going to go on to become a chef one day is the plan. Either, regular chef or pastry chef, not sure yet. My youngest, who knows? She's hilarious and awesome, and we'll have a lot of fun together. So there has been a lot of healing over the last while, for sure. Then I've had all this weird stuff, like my karate shrimp journey has changed a lot. I had been, so up until end of 2023, I had YouTube, podcast, which I started in 2022, I think. And then my blog. End of December, I realized this is just too much. Doing all that, all the social media. I never want to hire someone. It's a solo venture. It's going to be for me. I don't want to be a manager. I want to be a creator. But I need this to be, I want to be able to enjoy all the different pieces. And there are certain things I wasn't enjoying anymore. So I realized I needed to unload something so I could spend more time doing what I loved, which is making videos. So I deleted my whole blog December. I think it was just after Christmas. And changed my website, made it a lot simpler. And, a website I had taken 5 months to build back in 2020. So that hurt. It did hurt. But then I felt this relief, like, okay, I can focus on what I love, which is video. And then, but I still didn't know how I wanted it to look. So here's where I'm at. Beginning of November, I think I had just gotten to the point where I was almost decided on taking a break from all of my social media for the Karate Shrimp, apart from just uploading on YouTube and podcasts. So just YouTube and podcasts, no more blog, take a break from Instagram, Facebook, all of it. And like I've set up the Karate Shrimp accounts on various platforms, partly to secure the name, partly to, as another way to reach people. I don't love all of them. There's certain apps I would be happy to get rid of, but I figure, well, I'm already on there. So if I'm going to make, a YouTube short, it's easy enough to turn it into a reel, into a TikTok, into whatever. So I've been continuing with those, but I felt really stretched thin and not enjoying anything, and thought, okay, this is going to lead to burnout again. So I have to choose. So I'm going to just focus on YouTube and podcast, get really good at that, double down on video. And then I had a reel go viral on Instagram, and I've talked about this, and it was a goofy video. I almost didn't upload it because it's very cheeky. I did this influencer video, showing my butt on camera, totally different from any other content I had created. I've certainly shown my sense of humor in other videos, but this was the most cheeky video. And it took off, went viral, and my growth ever since then on Instagram, Facebook, now it's starting a bit on TikTok and on YouTube has been like ever since then I've seen growth. And ever since then because of that, I was able to fully monetize on YouTube. Because of that, I got the collab opportunity with Matthew Page, Master Ken. Totally grateful for that. Awesome experience. I never would have had that opportunity if I hadn't have stayed on Instagram and blown up on there and, made the videos that I had ever since then. So it's good that I stayed, but it's been really overwhelming and I don't know what to do still. I think, anyway, so I had this video blow up. Going viral is, a dream of a lot of creators. And it was something it'd be so cool to go viral. It was incredibly stressful though, incredibly stressful. And having gone from, like my notifications being fairly quiet all the time. And I had a pretty good sense of who my audience was. It was a very small audience, but they were into martial arts, into motivational stuff, that kind of thing. And now my audience, I don't even know, like it's on Instagram now I have just over 20K followers. I'm sure most of them are not in martial arts. I don't know, maybe they are, but I think my audience is so different now. What I also did during this process is I realized I wasn't enjoying posting on these apps anymore. And part of it was feeling stretched thin, but I think part of it too was I didn't feel like I could be myself. I felt like I was showing who I am more on YouTube and on all the other apps. It felt a little dry to me. It felt like I was just, kind of playing a role of what a karate YouTuber should be. And so it was more serious stuff and I wasn't enjoying it. I was doing all my goofing around, shit posting, that kind of thing on my personal social media accounts and having a lot more fun doing that. And part of me posting that booty reel that went viral was thinking, well, maybe I should, instead of doing the fun stuff just on my personal accounts, I should do it on the Karate Shrimp and just see. I knew I would get some people unfollowing me. I knew I would get, the more serious martial artists saying, holy shit, I don't want to be here anymore. This is not what I signed up for. But I was feeling like kind of still burnt out and wanting to quit those social apps anyway for a while. So I thought, fuck it, I'll just do this. And then it's taken off. And ever since then, I've done a lot more light stuff, a lot more lighthearted, goofy stuff, show my sense of humor more. Some of it has nothing to do with karate, but that's been kind of the way since the start. My channel has always been a variety channel, not just karate. I wanted it to be about all the different things around our training that affects our training. Now, my sense of humor is a huge part of what's helped me cope with all of the bullshit. And I've realized that it's okay to show that in my content. It's okay to show that on Instagram and Facebook. And people are responding to that. And I'm having people say to me, your sense of humor is part of what helps keep me sane. Like it's your goofy stuff. It helps me laugh. I have people say, you know what? My day is plenty serious and stressful. I have a stressful job. When I come home at the end of the day, I don't want more serious stuff online. I want to kick back, relax, laugh, see some goofy stuff. So even if they're serious martial artists, some of those people are like, I appreciate the goofy shit. I appreciate the shit posting because I don't want to be serious all the time. So I'm so grateful that I seem to be reaching people. And so part of this is I decided to just be me on camera, just be me on these apps and not try to be the Karate Shrimp as I had presented myself up until that point. Just use my sense of humor and be authentic and vulnerable too. And people are responding to that. And recently this week, I shared my story about all the stuff we have gone through over the past few years. And I've had so many people reach out and tell me their stories and tell me stuff that they're struggling with. And it's like, I'm realizing, okay, even though, YouTube is where my heart is and YouTube is where I will, if I'm going to be able to make a full-time income doing this, it's going to be YouTube. YouTube is going to be a core part of that. I don't see Instagram or Facebook as being, something I could make a living off of, like a full-time living off of. And it's not something that I want from those apps. I see them more as, especially Instagram. I really like Instagram. It's my favorite. It's been a great place to build a community, to kick back and laugh and be goofy, do my shit posting, share some stuff. I share recipes. I share all sorts of shit on there and people like it, so that's been a lot more fun. I've been having more fun with it, but then I'm like, it's been tricky because the bulk of my audience now is on Instagram, and I do have people coming over gradually to YouTube, but the bulk of them are there, and I don't want to neglect those people because they're important to me. And I have so many good conversations on there too, and I have people interacting in the comments. It's really cool to see. So I think that's going to be the best place to continue to build a community. But then it's like finding that balance between being on there and being on YouTube. And so that's something that I've got to figure out right now. And I haven't made a podcast episode in months. So this is my first one back. It's unscripted, unplanned. I'm just talking at you right now, but I think I really needed to get off my butt and just do this and make this episode and then get back into a regular routine with it. Because I do miss that. So I think, confusion and angst and all of that, not knowing what I'm doing or where I'm going with this is going to be a normal part of the process because it is a creative process. I am a creator and there's no playbook for this stuff. There's no manual for creating an online venture like this. And but I do find, I've had the most growth on all the platforms since I decided to just do this instinctively, organically, follow my gut. What do I feel like posting today? What do I feel like talking about? And I just kind of go with it. And that's how my creativity works. It's like I need some structure for sure for uploading so that I don't neglect the podcast for 3 months. So I don't, burn out, that kind of thing. But I also need a lot of time and space just to let, my mind wander and to brainstorm. I find I do my most, the best brainstorming when I'm not working, like when I'm just, I'm going for a walk or I'm running on my treadmill or doing a workout or just sitting and giving myself time and space to think. And then I come up with all of these ideas and it looks like I'm not working, but it's like, oh my gosh, I use Notion to write down all of my video ideas. And then I, use Word to make my notes and scripts and that kind of thing. And I have so many ideas in Notion, so many different things that I'm going to do and I want to do. And I'm going to take all of my old blog articles. I still have those, even though I deleted the blog off my website, and I'm going to refilm those. Some of them I did turn into videos. They're not very good anymore. That was a long time ago, much poorer video production. So I want to redo a lot of those and turn all those into podcast episodes. So I have a lot of stuff planned, a lot of stuff I want to do. But it's, I do need that time though. Every day, every week to just sit or just walk and think and, give myself space. So I'm still trying to figure that out. What would be a good schedule, where I want to go with this. It'll change probably again and often, but yeah, so that's where I'm at. So thank you for listening to me ramble here. After this was my get back into it, my step back into it. It really something that, people talk about how to get motivation. Sorry, my elbow or my shoulder cracked there. How to get motivation. I need motivation in order to get back into working out, get back into karate, whatever it is. We build up motivation by taking action first. So this is my action that I'm taking to build up that motivation again to upload regularly. So that's what this is. And I feel really good about it. Although I did film, so this is my second day of attempting this. I filmed yesterday and I forgot I didn't have a pop screen or wind filter or anything on pop filter or windscreen on my mic. Audio was shit and I had something on my face too. So I had to refilm. So, but that's good. It's good that those mistakes can teach us, right? They can help us. And it was a frustrating day, but I feel so much more motivated now to get back into this and get used to doing this and get comfortable filming my podcast episodes and doing these, creating a lot more videos to help you. I have a lot of stuff upcoming to help you. It's not just going to be about me. So thank you for listening to all that. And for anyone new here, I hope that gives you a sense of who I am and what I'm about and why I make the content that I make, why I'm sometimes goofy on camera. It's funny because I do get people saying I get a lot of hate thrown my way online, a lot of misogynistic stuff. A lot of people, like if I make a sex joke or whatever, I'm fully clothed in all my videos. Like I haven't done anything raunchy, but I have a raunchy sense of humor, right? So I have no problem making videos like that, but I get people calling me a whore, calling me a slut, saying all sorts of awful stuff. Like, whatever, it's not going to stop me from being me. I get martial artists telling me I'm an embarrassment to the discipline of martial arts. I'm disrespectful because, if I make a video, I did one where I did Seiyunchin and I did middle fingers and I thought it was funny. A lot of people have responded to that video. A lot of martial artists think it's really funny. And not just, people in other disciplines, but people who practice karate say that's really funny. So, there's always going to be someone who dislikes what we're doing, who doesn't approve of what we're doing, who throws hate our way, but they don't matter. They really don't, and I've known from the beginning that I'm not going to appeal to everyone. I'm not going to appeal to everyone who's in karate. I'm not going to appeal to everyone who's in martial arts. I'm going to appeal to people who are out, who don't even train. But I'm going to appeal to people who, are into the stuff I talk about and are into me and feel comfortable with me. And that might end up being a very small group, but that's cool. And it's important to me to build my tribe, and when you build your tribe, you have haters, it's us versus them. And yeah, there's negative things about that mentality, but that's how we're wired. That's the way humans are. And when you build your tribe, you're going to have people who aren't in your tribe. And, that saying, if you want to reach everyone, you're going to reach nobody. If you try to reach everyone, you'll end up reaching nobody. But if you're just yourself and you be clear on who you are and what you value and what your boundaries are, you'll find your people. And that's what I'm finding. And the last several months, for sure, I'm finding my people. And some of those people, it's surprising. They're like, I've never been interested in martial arts and I'm still not, but there's something about the stuff you're saying and you being vulnerable and opening up about stuff, or your sense of humor, that really resonates with me. It's helped me. I have people saying they've started uploading martial arts stuff on social media only because of me. Now they feel comfortable doing it. They were scared to do it, but because of me, it helped them feel braver. And all sorts of wonderful stories I'm hearing where I'm not even trying to get those results. I'm not encouraging people, to do things the way I did. Sometimes I do. I say, hey, share your stories, open up about this stuff, make content if you feel comfortable doing so. Don't worry about haters, but I don't push anyone to do something they don't want to do. I never say, hey, there's one way to do it and this is the way you should do it. I just respect people for their choices. And, I'm comfortable being vulnerable and being open about who I am, and people know that they're safe with me. And that's paying off. That's paying off. Not that it's maybe not paying off financially yet, but it's paying off in building a community and building a tribe online, which I'm super, super grateful for. Even though a lot of that was, me showing my butt on camera, and that's what kickstarted that. I'm grateful for that too. We should be grateful for our butts and all the benefits they can provide. So anyway, I'm stuffed up. Sorry, allergies or sick. I don't know. I need to stop now. I have to take my kid to the dentist, but I will be back probably next week. I'm going to try and do weekly uploads again. But again, I'm not going to be too rigid with myself. Shit happens, life happens, but that's my aim. Hopefully it works out. But if not, I will be back in another way too, making more goofy videos. There's possibly another collab in the works soon, possibly with Master Ken. You didn't hear it from me though. It's a big secret probably. So anyway, I hope you're good, and thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.